Law, a series of podcasts focused on insights and learning pertaining to the implementation and use of AI in legal practice, with hosts Ian Hull and Suzana Popovic-Montag from Hull Hull LLP, brought to you by Counsel.ai.
Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of A Better Place to Be, AI in the Law. Your co-host Ian Hull from downtown Toronto, Canada, and I'm joined by our co-host Suzana Popovic-Montag of Hull Hull.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Ian.
Well, good to see you again, and
Likewise.
moving into our second venture of our podcast. We'll hopefully get to the many numbers that we are at with Hull and Hull's estate, Hull and Estates podcast, which I think we're into the 600 or 700 number now, or something crazy like that. Podcasting is something that you and I have been doing for a long time. I got sort of the bug for podcasting in probably 2007, when we started to begin the journey. But we're launching this new podcast because of our dedication and focus to AI and the law. And that's why we think it's a better place to be if you are understanding AI and the law, and hence the name. All right. So one of the first questions I get asked when I get involved with anybody who is interested in engaging in AI and the law is, well, what are you guys doing? And one of the great parts of your professional teachings to me has been no secrets, and there's better to share than lots of secrets about our clients, but better to share our business knowledge than to feel like we have to hang on to it and pretend that we're going to create a better edge in our own business models by not telling people. So today we're going to really talk about what we're doing, because we've been informed by so many great leaders in the AI area of law that we want to share what we've been doing, and some of the things that have worked and some of the things that haven't worked, and some of the tools that we're bringing about.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we do that. There are so many products out there, and we're all still learning. So notwithstanding the fact that we'll mention the ones that we've got, we're always looking to improve and do better. So if people have other ideas, other programs that they've experimented with, that they're finding satisfaction with, we'd love to hear, because it's all about sort of sharing the wealth of knowledge so that we all become better and can ultimately service our clients in the best way possible.
And we're going to definitely learn about some of the other products from others. We're going to be interviewing and getting a deeper dive into it. But let's just talk about some of our experience, only to see, and hopefully it'll help people sort of get their sea legs and what might be some of the AI tools and some of the implementation that you want to consider. So I would say this: we break it down into the sort of the main tools, and then the sub tools, and then within that, the sub tools. Okay. And the main tools I start with are, our firm has committed a lot of time to use and learning of Co-Counsel, and that's a Thomson Reuters product. And we have also, though, experimented heavily with the LexisNexis product as well. Now, we're talking in April of 2026. So the nature of those tools, I know for sure we're going to see some pretty interesting stuff happening this summer with these products in terms of the more generative tools that they are, but the nature of these tools will change. But we're going to give a bit of our thoughts on what we're doing with them. That's our core source. Plus, we use Copilot, and the dovetailing between Copilot and our Co-Counsel efforts has been interesting, and we've had some ups and downs with that as well. We started with Co-Counsel to implement the direct AI usage, and one of the main things that were important to us was, and of course to every lawyer, is confidentiality and security. And so we have a team, and we'll talk about our team shortly, but we have a team that really thoroughly investigated where the safest tools are for use and protection of confidentiality for our clients. And we just happen to land on Co-Counsel, but I will say for sure LexisNexis tool is equally safe and equally, in many respects, equally good. Suzana, can you tell me a little bit about the idea of the open and closed systems that we have to be aware of as lawyers?
Yeah, I think that really is the key, and what we should always start with first and foremost is the fact that we need to make sure that we have a closed system. Because of the nature of the work that we do, because of the importance of privilege and confidentiality, we can't just be going out there and putting questions and putting information out there into ChatGPT or any of these other Grok and other platforms. We need a closed system, which means that that information is going to stay within our firewalls, that it can't be accessed by others outside, and that ultimately we're protecting that sanctity of the confidentiality of our clients' information.
And what do I mean by the open system that lots of lawyers sometimes get caught into?
That's the ChatGPT and those programs that are out there where there is no, guarantee, and there's actually not a guarantee at all that that will be protected. So there's, ChatGPT, we've got Grok, we've got, I know that there's other ones out there where, and those are the ones that we use, I think many people use in their day-to-day lives. If you just want to say, hey, where's the nearest pizza place? Hey, how do I get to this place? You quickly pick up your phone, dictate, write, whatever, and you get that instantaneous response. I think we are all very comfortable with that, and many of us use that on a regular basis. But the concern we have, certainly as practitioners and as lawyers in particular, is that we want to make sure that we're not using those tools for confidential information, because that's where we're going to be offside with the use of AI in our practices.
And of course, some of these tools like ChatGPT now has an enterprise level and they'll anonymize things. And there are ways, but the pure public ChatGPT is one of those that lawyers have to be so careful about. But what worries me more than anything is that you and I kind of know that, but we run an operation. We have over 50 people in our office here who are operating day in and day out with client confidential information. And so we've had to institute a very clear and distinct policy about AI usage that you've developed, and that it's been clearly identified to the staff and the lawyers. That to the extent that you're going to use ChatGPT and so on. I love ChatGPT. I actually use Grok myself, full disclosure. But the other day I was in New York with my family, and I literally put my headset on and I was talking to Grok, going, "Okay, I'm at the corner of 53rd and 5th, and I need to get pizza really quickly. My kid's really hungry, and where's the best choice?" And then it says, "Okay, well, turn left, take 10 steps." Like, it was just fun to travel with. And of course, who cares if I'm throwing that stuff into the internet? But if I'm standing there saying, geez, I got to get to a meeting with the Smith estate, and if I don't get to it in 10 minutes, I'm going to be late. And then all of a sudden I've thrown the name into the system. The frightening part about that is, and I learned this on my favorite podcast, which I will repeat and emphasize because of the cool leadership that they're providing, and that's AI and the Future of Law with Jen Leonard and Bridget McCormick. But there's a concern that there's been some cases in the U.S. where the solicitor and client privilege, if it is exchanged through ChatGPT, these kinds of exchanges, is broken by virtue of it sending it into the general internet. And there's cases where the courts are saying, well, look, you breached your solicitor and client privilege, so that's entitled to be produced. So obviously tracking that is just like, it's common sense, but it's common sense to people who are on the ground, who are deeply engaged in the AI community, but not necessarily for your team. And so we have tried to educate. It comes back to our first podcast, and it's always going to be my theme. It's the change management. Not about AI, it's about change management. And that's part of it. Hey, you got to change the way you think about how you're using your tools in that regard. Okay, so Suzana, we've got our sort of day-to-day access to a closed system, anonymizing system with Co-Counsel. So we can put in, geez, I really want to try to get an affidavit together based on the materials from the Smith estate, and I want to craft the first run of the draft affidavit. Please draw from my iManage the core information and give me a first draft. Okay, so there's a great example of how a business tool like that's being used. We concurrent with that, we work with Copilot. And I mean concurrent because it is something that we've been very careful not to. We want both going, essentially both going almost at the same time in that sense. Because Copilot's got its own strengths, and we have an enterprise version of it. So of course we've got anonymizing, and so we've got no confidentiality issues. But we, on a day-to-day basis, those are our two fundamental tools that we're using to create work product, not just an email to the client, reporting letters, and refining reporting letters. And Copilot we're finding very strong on the drafting and side of things. Do you have any other thoughts about sort of our starting point tools that they're the two passwords you put in every morning, so to speak, double identification, of course?
Yes, of course. And really, they are both based on the same kind of premise, but they work differently. And so when it comes to a really deep dive, a really deep legal dive into a file, we're going to be looking and working with Co-Counsel. And when we're looking for just sort of a quick and, perhaps not as deep a dive into a file or a question or a keystroke kind of inquiry, then we're using the Copilot. And as you say, and it's most important is that they're both closed systems. They both have strengths. And I actually think that they work nicely and in tandem together because and it's all about making sure that you're checking your work. So if you get a result from one platform, you can check it against the other. And although they have different kind of purposes, ultimately, it's always good to be able to have that opportunity to double check something.
And the checking your work is so, as we've always say, so important. And one of the things that we do is, of course, you and I are deeply committed to conventional publication work as well. And we have our own, we've written 2 editions of Probate Practice, which is an estate-based textbook, a leading textbook in this area, and one that was written by my father for years, and then we took it over. And we work with another couple of other core Feeney's and some of the other core textbooks. But that hard copy written, or it's online as well, is a great resource. And the other day I came up with one, and this is just great thing about being a lawyer is that I said, I have an idea in my head that something happened about the law with this particular question. And I kept going into Co-Counsel, and Co-Counsel's got tremendous powers in the deep research tool that it has too, and as does LexisNexis. I mean, the resources they're drawing from are phenomenal. But one of the things that drives me a little crazy is Thomson Reuters doesn't have our book in there yet, and so it wasn't drawing from our book. And I'm thinking, I know that there was an issue where I needed proof that you need a witness to be called at trial for a certain purpose. And I said, no, I know that. It's ringing in my head. I can't remember where. And I said to the student, go do the research. And then they came back and I said, no, you haven't given me the right answer. It's still ringing in my head. And I said, go read Probate Practice. And they came back and they didn't. And I was like, okay, please go read Probate. And they come back and go, oh yeah, page 63 says that. And it was just a fluke, but it was one of those things that was sticking in my head. So the other part of Co-Counsel that we really use and rely on heavily is the deep research tool that they have, and LexisNexis has a tremendous tool as well, because they also have a deep volume of information related to practice advisory. Our firm has written 2 chapters in that as well, where we're giving tangible, practical advice within a chapter. So if we're talking about passive accounts, we've got the precedents, we've got the opening letters, we've got all of the sorts of things you'd look for. So the LexisNexis tool pulls from that, and Thomson Reuters pulls from their own practice research work as well. So those are the kind of starting point programs that we're running, and we just happen to be running Co-Counsel a little directly, but we got Co-Counsel, we got its deep research tool within it, and we got working with Copilot. So before we start to look at some of the sub tools that we're using, Suzana, what we talked about this idea that a lot of the business community is really pushing hard on their employees to get enhanced skills and abilities to using AI tools, and they're tracking it. And what do we do at our firm?
And we do the same. We are tracking the use because we are so committed to this process. We're also very fortunate to have in-house training that is available to our lawyers. We have a Monday morning AI session where a nugget is being shared by our group who are basically teaching us the capabilities of these programs and how to apply them. And just even over the course of a year and a half, how we've seen the searching functionality and the way that you put these prompts in, it is becoming so sophisticated and so much easier than when we first started. It really is just phenomenal how we're seeing this progression on an almost monthly basis. And so I know that we're just going to continue to see that into the future. So we really believe that, you're going to become really good at it by using it. And if you don't use it, then you're just going to be left behind ultimately.
And when the tracking helps us just see people who either aren't adopting or who clearly aren't picking up on it. So we use CNSL-ai, a company that is dedicated to internal training for lawyers. And they have a morning session on Monday mornings, and then they have a follow-up with each lawyer not right away, but throughout the week. So that person will find a one-on-one session with the CNSL-ai trainer who says, okay, we learned this week. I want to walk through with you, want to make sure you understand it and that you're comfortable with using the tool.
And we apply it specifically to a particular file. So there's a real life application there. It's not just learning the theoretical component. And that's where we find that that's where it resonates. When you can actually see it help you and make your practice easier. I think that really is the key. It's one thing to know about what it could do, but it's another thing to actually have it do that for you.
So true. And I think, from my perspective, it's, and CNSL-ai taught us this. So they try to teach us something core, applicable to the day-to-day, like last week or the week before, we learned about how to use our AI tools for more effective docketing, okay? And making sure it's clean, it's no typos, and clear, and identifying the work product you're doing so that it can be imported into the bill without having a bunch of editing and so on. A waste of time, mundane work, silly work for lawyers to have to be doing. And so they taught us that tool, they taught us how to implement it, and they gave us day-to-day examples. And then they came around to all of us and said, okay, let's just walk through it and see if this is working for you. It's that tangible second step. And what they're also doing, which I found really interesting, is that they're saying to us, okay, so the CNSL-ai rep is coming in, they're saying, okay, here's what we learned, here's how we go through that. And then remember 2 weeks ago, this other core tool we went through. I just want to spend a minute going through that to make sure that you're still fresh in your mind. So what they're doing is they're creating a core list of action items that can be used day to day on our files, and then teaching the one that was just taught and coming back to some of the ones that were taught before. Two things come of that. One is top of mind, and two is more memory of the process. So I just thought it was a really interesting teaching moment. And we do it all the time when we talk to lawyers or students when we're teaching. We will come back to summarize, repeat, so that we've got context and we've got it fresh in our mind. So that's another part of the process, all right? We've got the tools, the core tools we're using, and then we bring in this follow-up and active steps that occur. We found that the stickiness of the learning is more effective, and we're really glad that CNSL-ai does that with their team to remind us of that.
Yeah, that refresh is critical because these programs are so powerful, and just sort of learning what it is that they can do, how we can apply them. And then, there's only so much information we can keep in our minds. We realize we're busy lawyers, so it's always great to have that. Oh, and remember this. Oh, yes, yes, of course, I'd like to try that again. So it's a really smart thing that they've come up with in terms of that reminder program. And the way that, we learn is by repeating, and that's very, very helpful.
So let's talk a few minutes about adoption, because internal adoption really is the key to success, obviously. And as I've said many times and will again, is that this is about change management. And lawyers aren't great at changing. We know that. And we also know lawyers aren't really well skilled at managing change. And it's hard from the leadership level, at your level, Suzana, and our level, my level as well, to create a scenario that will encourage the change. And we can talk all we want about the excitement of AI and the fact that it takes mundane tasks off our plate and that it's the future and all of those things, but that doesn't necessarily make buy-in. What buy-in comes from, I've found, is, of course, this hands-on follow-up, those kinds of things, and making sure that we're teaching the lawyers tools that they can actually use, as opposed to tools that are fun to have.
And honestly, the change management comes from the top. It's the leadership that has to have the buy-in. There can't be any holdouts from the top level because the associates, the others, will pick up on that. And it has to be, a combined effort in terms of that enthusiasm has to be shared across that whole level. Otherwise, there will be an opportunity for someone to be that holdout. And that's certainly not what any firm wants, and certainly not in the best interests of our clients. I mean, we're here to provide the best product, to provide the best service, and the way we can do that is by, as you say, reducing some of the mundane tasks to open us up for those more meaningful tasks and those things that are really going to add value to our clients.
Okay, so now we've got sort of our core tools that we're using. Let's talk a little bit about what are sort of day-to-day sub-core tools, and I would categorize those in a couple areas. One is day-to-day, minute-to-minute. We use Slack. So that's a tool that is known to many, but is a tool that allows us to pull out of the email chain day-to-day connection with within the firm, within your team, and you create your own team within Slack to move files along. And really, the Slack purchase came out of the fact that it was our thought that it was the best way to manage the flow of emails, because too much of the internal steps that need to be taken in a day on a file were getting buried in client email service and so on. So we found separating Slack out of our email chain has tremendously allowed us to control in a day the turnaround on things. And we have a rule at our firm: we try to get back to a client within 24 hours in some way, shape, or form, whether it's just thank you, we're reading it, we'll get back to you, or it's more comprehensive. And that is hard to do when you get 300 or 400 emails in a day. It's hard to stay on top of that, plus internal efforts to move files along. And so for me, I'm using Slack. I go to my Slack almost first because I know that's the work that's moving the file along. And then I go to my emails because that's the client service. And that's just the way I manage it. And so that's just the tools we're using. But the AI component of that is something as well. So Suzana, do you want to talk a little bit about your day-to-day management tools?
Yeah, I mean, we also use the Monday.com platform to basically run our files. So from the very beginning of a file to the very end of a file, we have a program whereby every step of the process is set out in the Monday.com platform. Tasks are assigned to particular individuals, and at any point in time, anyone can go in and see where the file is at, what the next steps will be. And as Ian says, the next steps are going to be set out in the Slack channel, And that's an internal messaging system that we work with very strongly and very highly recommend it. So we have that opportunity to make sure that everyone on the team knows what's going on in the file. So it's not like in the old days where, only one person would have the information and you'd have to go look for it or what have you. It's at your fingertips. And that ease of being able to locate it, I think, helps us immeasurably in terms of being able to stay on top of things, to move things forward, and to ultimately provide the best services to our clients.
And the Monday.com and Slack both have within it components of AI tools that we
That's right.
are using and adapting into our day-to-day practice. So, for example, Slack will now have a quick summary of the message. You can read; it'll do a summary, automatic summary of the message that you're going into. So sometimes it helps. You just got to go, okay, that's for that. And then Monday.com, of course, has deep AI tools within it. And again, what we can do there is, like, part of the problem is, these tools all have their own little twists with AI components within it and learning each one and so on. And so we're relying on Counsel.ai's team to come in to say, look, here's what Slack's doing well with AI. As long as you're using the program just conventionally as we've described it, you might want to add in this tool, and that is the early reader tool, or you might not. Monday.com, same sorts of things. We're allowing them to sort of teach us where we implement it in, because coming back to change management, we're finding too much is too much. And we're really we have high expectations from our team to get handle on Co-Counsel and a handle on Copilot. Usage of Slack and Monday.com is intuitive, so it's not that the technology lift isn't big. It's just if you want to add on the AI components of those within those tools, we have to be careful we're not dumping too much too fast.
Absolutely. And, we also use Lattice in terms of a feedback program and to elicit comments and to elicit, suggestions from our lawyers as well. And that, again, is a very intuitive program, and it allows us to sort of keep all of that information in one platform. So you've got the track of the feedback, if it comes to professional development, we talked about this, we talked about that kind of a chain is in part of that. But there's also this whole, as I said, suggestion component to it where, recommendations are made, suggestions are made, thoughts are being shared. And again, nice to have that sort of carved away from the files related stuff in Slack, from the perhaps, other platforms that we have. And we found that that's been very, very helpful in our practices.
Well, that's right. And the Lattice tool has got, it's again built in some cool AI components that we're using. And again, I'm just trying to take bite-sized parts of that, but they're auto-generating some replies and things like that. So it's really a powerful tool as well. But a really nice exchange, and it's in the moment exchange. A big part of success that we found with our lawyers is that if we can give the feedback in the moment and have a tool that captures it, so that maybe on the one-on-ones I get to look in it and I go, boy, you've got like 7 or 8 cool feedback moments, and they're all captured in your Lattice channel. Just a neat little. Obviously that's a core element of what Lattice does for us, but a nice resource. All right, well, Suzanne, I know we've got a whole bunch of other aspects of our day-to-day practice that we want to talk about in our next podcast, and I think we've got at least the 2 high-level ones. That's working with Co-Counsel, working with Copilot in conjunction throughout the day, tracking those numbers and encouraging their usage, emphasizing the importance of it with our teams, and then using these sub-tools, which are already in place for us. They're already day-to-day file management tools like Monday.com, Slack, Lattice, those tools, using some of their enhanced AI aspects of it, and making sure we're moving the files along and watching the client service all the time. So that's a great start. And I want to come back to this in our next podcast, because we got sort of the next part of what we're doing in the day that we're using, and it might be helpful for people. And then my last part, and I'll let you wind this up, is that we've learned this from others, okay? I don't have an original idea in a million years, all right? I observe, I watch, I listen. And that's all a big part of learning how to change manage as lawyers. We're not necessarily all that well trained for change management. A good friend of mine did his MBA in change management and became one of the world leading experts in change management. And when I listen to him, I think of myself as a complete piker. But what we're trying to do is our best to change manage through using the AI tools.
Well, thank you very much, Ian, and thanks to all of you who are listening to us. Please keep the dialogue going. Reach out to us, give us your thoughts, your comments, your feedback, and we look forward to our next podcast.
You have been listening to A Better Place to Be, AI and the Law, with hosts Ian Hull and Suzana Popovic-Montag from Hull and Hull LLP, brought to you by counsel.ai. If you have any questions or comments, please email our office at info@cnsl.ai. Thank you.